Hey y'all, welcome back to Mirror Expressions, a channel where I take the time to share a little bit of myself with you all, and I invite y'all to come in the house and do the same with me. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up button for me. And if you haven't subscribed, take the time to do that as well. And drop me a mirror emoji down in the chat if you have looked at a mirror today and you feel A1 with what you see looking back at you. If not, as always, I implore you to do what you must to get back to a healthier you. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and get at it. First of all, my apologies for being so late on these reviews. I just came back from a fantabulous vacation. I took my baby to Disneyland, and I really did have all the intentions in the world to get my reviews done while I was out there. But what I underestimated was all of the fun that I would have. I literally only watched one show while I was out there, and that was the first day we landed. Beyond that, I watched no TV. So I just kind of, after a while, just said, you know what? I'll get it when I get back home. So here I am. Today we are at A Friend of the Family, episode 8, Outer Darkness. Y'all, this show still just makes me cringe. Every episode is just like, the more and more we find out those more intimate details, it just blows my freaking mind, y'all. It really does. So this episode starts out, we see Pete. He's in Salt Lake City, Utah. He's staking him B out at his apartment. He's waiting for him to come out, see what's up, see what he can find out. So he's just literally waiting there all night until well into the next day. And then B finally comes out. And he's with this little girl. It's not Jan, some other little girl. And so he sits the little girl like off to the side while he goes to a payphone and he makes a call. Well, he ends up calling Mary Ann, right? And he tells her that one of his contacts has seen Jan across state lines. And I was just like, how is it that one of your contacts even knows what Jan looks like, right? Because mind you, Jan's parents decided to handle this behind closed doors. They didn't make a big spectacle out of it. They didn't get like a lot of people involved. They didn't like have flyers going, her pictures up on the back of milk cartons. Like, they didn't do any of that, right? So it's just like, how does your contact, sorry, not friend, how does your contact even know what Jan looks like to identify her and says, well, yeah, I saw her and she was across the state line. Like, these lies are just getting ludicrous. So anyway, he goes on. He says he wants Mary Ann to meet him in person, and he'll tell her everything that he knows. And he's just like, he refuses to do it over the phone because he knows that there's a recording device right there in the kitchen by the phone. Y'all, I was just like, I don't know if y'all remember last episode, but I said that when Gail came in to see Mary Ann, I said, why did she do that? Because she was scoping out the scene and she saw their recording device, right? So Mary Ann was like, who told you that? Did Gail tell you that? Oh, so anyway, he's basically just like, either if you don't come to see me, you don't find out about your daughter. If you want to find out about your daughter, you make sure you're there. You're going to show up, all right? So he tells her where to meet her, and it's a week away. And the thing is, you have to come along. No Bob, just you. And so Mary Ann's like, why are you waiting so long? That's a long time. That's a whole week. And he gonna talk about he's busy. He's busy trying to find Jan. I was like, oh, this man would tell these folks anything. So anyway, she agrees. So they make a plan to meet at some cafe or whatever. And I was just thinking, y'all, to be honest, at this point, I don't necessarily think he has the same desire he has for Jan as he did when she was younger. Like, I don't think it's there anymore. I think he's getting off more so on the pain and the anguish and the anxiety that he is causing the Roberts, right? I think he's getting more of a kick out of that, and more of a kick of just knowing he's able to manipulate all these different people. Even Jan, with like having her thinking she's an alien and all that. But as far as like his sexual desires, I think it's lessening. Like, I think he's moved on more to that other little girl that we saw him with when the episode first opened up. You know what I'm saying? Jan's becoming too old for him now. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. So meanwhile, we end up seeing Jan, right? She's still at the boarding school. She's unhappy. She's been waking up in the middle of the night, crying. We see her kind of just standing in a mirror, holding her stomach and rambling on. And so her roommate, ends up waking up as well, and she's trying to check on her, right? And Jan gets all snappy with her first. And the roommate is just really being nice to her, right? And so Jan begins to open up about how she misses her family and how she misses acting in plays or whatever. So come to find out, well, her roommate enjoys acting as well. And she's like, well, there's this play I've been wanting to do, the Shakespeare play I wanted to try out for, audition for, but it's over at the boys' school. And how about you come with me? Because I didn't want to do it by myself anyways, right? And so Jan's like, but it's at the boys' school. And so the roommate was like, okay, what's wrong with that? And Jan's like, I can't talk to boys. And so the roommate pretty much was just like, why not? Just a different campus, So, of course, we all know that B told her she can't talk to boys. She can't touch a boy. And, so that's where she's coming from. But, of course, that's not what she's telling her roommate. So, next thing we see B. He's at his brother's car lot, right? And he's fishing up behind the car. It kind of almost looked like he's trying to flatten the tires or something, because he was like bent down, up over, but end up gonna find out he had hid a weapon up under one of the cars, right? So Joe was just like, hey man, you can't do that. And so they get a little back and forth, because B, he be trying to convince a person the sky is red. He's like, no, you told me I could do that. And Joe was like, no, I didn't. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, Joe said he is pretty much over this mess. He was like, he tired of the FBI. They're starting to call again about Jan, and he pretty much don't want no smoke. He don't want to have nothing to do with it, right? So B was just like, you know what, Joe? I want to thank you. I want to thank you for turning me in when I took Jan to Mexico. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, what? Then he gonna talk about, because they end up bringing us closer together as lovers. I said, good gosh. You know what? And so, the brother, he was just trying to rope the brother in. So the brother's like, okay, he's apologized. And then gonna throw in his face, talking about, oh yeah, it made us be better lovers. And I was like, talking about getting over those trials and those hurdles brought us closer together. And Joe pretty much like, you know what, you better leave her alone. You better not get her pregnant. And so B was like, you know what, right now that's impossible, because I don't even know where she is. Plus, she's not even started her period yet. I was just like, you know what, he is so disgusting. He is so disgusting. But anyway, so Marianne gets called into this school out in Ogden, this middle school, right? It's the same middle school that the girl we saw B with at the beginning of the episode. That's where she is, right? So she's called in there by the Ogden police, and they're pretty much wanting to know if the little girl is the same little girl that she and Bob saw that time when they had stalked out B at his apartment, remember? And they saw the little girl and her mom get out the car, and they thought the little girl got out first, and they thought it was Jan until she turned around. That little girl. So they bring Mary Ann to this room where the little girl is. So Mary Ann just kind of stuck her head in the door, just looked through the window or whatever. And she was just like, yeah, that's the same little girl. And so we can kind of hear them. I don't know if like something was going on or what, but they end up showing the little girl a picture of Jan, asking her, hey, have you seen this little girl? Have you seen this girl? Do you know of her? And so the little girl's just like, no, I don't, never seen her. And so the little girl's mom is there as well. And so she starts talking about, does this have to do with the Brobergs? And they're no good. They're just out to ruin B's lives. He's a great man, yada, 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 right? Just going on and on, singing his praises. And so I just said, oh, so that's his new mouthpiece. That's his new one. Gail's gone, even though I think if he wanted her to do something, she'll still do it too. So anyway, they end up asking the mom, well, what's your relationship to B, right? And so the mom was just like, oh, he's just like a family member. And the little girl said, yeah, he's my best friend. We do everything together. I said right then and there, I know that she is one of his victims, not his next. She already is. And that I think hit Mary Ann like a ton of bricks, because I think she felt like she was hearing herself and Jan at one point in time. And she just ran out, got sick in the bathroom, throwing up and sick. It just made her so sick to her stomach. I really think that's what happened for her. She saw herself in that situation. So anyway, P comes to see Mary Ann. And, he's trying to talk her out of meeting up with B, because he says, it's dangerous. You can't go by yourself. He's just going to force you to sign those papers. He might do anything to force you to sign, the paper so he can go ahead and marry Jan. And so Mary Ann was just like, no, this is my baby. I got to do it. I got to go. And I just said, I wish, I know you cannot turn back the hands of time. And I'm pretty sure Mary Ann and Bob felt like there were things they wished they could have done differently. They could have gone back and just had those moments to do it over. You know what I'm saying? But I was just gonna say, like, the way she is now, I wish she had been like that from jump. You know what I'm saying? Even like back when Mary Ann and Bob were not on the same page as far as B's involvement with the family. Like, I just wish she kind of had that same energy then, and maybe things would have gone a little bit differently. I think that he was taking advantage of Jan anyways, but I don't think maybe it would have gotten to this point. She still would have had trauma to deal with, but I think this just made it just that much worse to the umpteenth degree, because now he kind of was turning her against her own family, and and then making her feel like she wasn't good enough or desperate, like she had the weight of this other group of people on her shoulder, her alien family from this other planet she was supposedly from. So yeah, I just wish she had all this same energy then. But at least she's there now. So she basically told Pete, no, this is my baby. I'm going no matter what. I need to find out whatever I can. Y'all, Pete, I was gonna call him Pete. we call one of my little cousins Pete. But Pete turns around and gives him his own personal weapon. And he was just like, you know what? You're going to need this. You need to be able to protect yourself. I said, okay, P. Like, P is definitely emotionally involved at this point. We kind of pretty much saw that last episode. We saw a lot. And so at this point, he doing whatever. And so we see B. He's picking up Jan from school, right? And so, you know, when he sees her, they hug and blah, blah, blah. And so Jan's little roommate chick, she's watching from the window because, you know, at this point, she's starting to pick up on something. Like, something isn't right. She can't just put her hands on it, but she knows something isn't right. So we see her watching from the window or wherever. And so anyway, B ends up taking Jan to the beach, right? They're walking along the beach, and he can kind of tell that Jan is sad. Like, she just not her same little bubbly self or whatever. So B tries to find out if her period has started, right? So he asking her, well, are you sad because it's the wrong time of the month? You know, and Jan kind of slick called him out. She was just like, if you're trying to find out if I started my cycle, the answer is no, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? So he then tells her that Zeta and Zethra are the ones that were asking. They're concerned that she hasn't started yet. And so he tells her, you know, because you can't have a baby until you get your period. And so Jan is like, okay, how do you know that? And I said, I'm so glad she's starting to actually question things now. She's starting to ask questions. We kind of saw a little bit of that last episode too. Like, she's kind of starting to question the things that he's just telling her versus taking it for face value or whatever. So yeah, she's just like, well, how do you know so much about their planet or whatever? And so he's just like, you know, they talk to me all the time. And he did, you know, he tries to change the subject real quick like he does, you know what I'm saying? And Jan kept pushing. I was just like, you know what, that's right, baby. You fight your way through this BS into some real clarity and perspective, because he's just feeding you any old thing to try to, you know, keep you where he wants you, basically. And so he was just like, yeah, they talk to me all the time. And she's pretty much like, well, when did that start? Because I haven't heard from them. They don't talk to me like that. You know what I'm saying? So he said, you know, I didn't want to talk to you about this stuff because it's so traumatizing. Oh, so she starts, you know, doing her little nervous thing, biting them nails or whatever. I said, she's starting to figure him out. She is. And so, you know, he kind of calls her out about biting them nails. So he sees that, you know, she ain't exactly just up under his thumb no more. You know what I'm saying? And so, true to form, like he always does, he starts love bombing her, right? How about I take you driving? You want to go driving? And you know, she was all excited about that because guess what? What kid doesn't like to drive? You know what I'm saying? We all got excited about driving. And now I can't stand it to this day. But at that point, it was like, oh, I get to drive? Yes, you know. So he takes her driving. She's driving. They're going down through this neighborhood, right? And so she mentions how different it is now, how different it looks now that she's having fun. So B was just like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Like, now that you're having fun? You've been here before? And so she was like, no, I don't know. It was just, I don't know why I said that. You know, try to play it off. So B kept pressing her, right? Like, what do you mean? And so she tells him, you know, about that play that she went to go audition for. And he's like, he was at the boys' school. And he just started blowing up at her. Like, he just flipped the script. So he started trying to make her feel guilty about talking to other people. He was saying, you don't just hurt me. You hurt all the people from your planet. Don't you even care about the mission? They told you not to talk to any boys. So Jan is like, That's all I think about. And so she's not really paying attention because she's focused on B, who's in the passenger side. She's on the driver's side, right? Because she's driving. And so she ends up running into the back of a car. So they have this accident. And the way it kind of happened, they made it seem like she kind of blacked out for a little bit. Because she hit the car and then she kind of comes through, and all we see is B outside the car talking to the owner of the car she hit. Right? So he ain't even checked to see if Jan okay. He too busy trying to smooth things over because, of course, he doesn't want the authorities to get involved, for one. You know what I'm saying? And so Jan there, her head all busted, right? She probably hit it on the steering wheel or whatever. And so, sorry, y'all. So she wanted to go to the hospital. She was talking about how she feels dizzy. And he was like, we can't because of your parents. So again, he's driving it into her head that her parents are the thing that's holding them back. They're the bad thing that's causing her not to be able to do things like get medical attention from the hospital. So that and his parole. He was just like, if I take him to the hospital, they're going to start digging. I have to go to jail. And so he was like, I told you to watch the road. So now Jan is crying, of course. And so she's saying, I'm sorry. So now I said, oh, goodness. Goodness. You know what? I'm just thinking like, how? Like, okay. When this series first started, we saw the real Jan, right? She did a little soliloquy. Or even if you watched the Netflix special, again, she was on there. And I just wonder, like, how does a family move on? Like, I'm glad to see she's in a healthier place. But I just wonder, does some of that stuff still creep up for her, like in her adult life? I'm sure she's had plenty of therapy and all of that. And I just kind of wonder, like, how that still may show up for her in her life. Because I just feel like all of this probably has to have some type of lasting effects on her. But anyways, I digress. So she's crying or whatnot, and she's apologizing. And so he then tells her that Zeta and Zethra are also mad at her, right? Because they feel like she's not trying hard enough to get married, to complete the mission, and that she's and they see her starting to lose faith. And so he's like, he told her that they said that they won't wait until she's 16. That they're going to go ahead and take Susan right now. And then he tells her, and if they do that, she might die because she's so little and her body isn't big enough to handle having a baby. I said, oh, that man. I just see how, I don't know. I don't get it. Like how people can be so ruthless like that into such an innocent being. Like, oh. So he then goes on to tell her, you know, if all of that happens, it's only your fault. It's only going to be you to blame. So, of course, you know, Jane is absorbing all of this and she's internalizing it. And so she's feeling like she has to make things happen. So we see Mary Ann. She's getting ready to go meet B. And so Bob, you know, he starts to say a prayer for the whole family, right? And baby, that weight on him was so bad, he couldn't even finish his prayer. He just started sobbing. And so Mary Ann picks it up where he left off and finishes off the prayer. And again, I just wish they were on this same kind of page where they had each other's back a long time before at this point. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, Marianne ends up arriving at the cafe, right? So she got her weapon in her purse, and but he's already sitting there, already eating breakfast. Like, he ain't have no real intentions on sitting down and sharing a meal with this lady. Like, not that that's the important part. I know Marianne ain't about that. No way. Marianne trying to find out about her daughter. But that just really shows, like, where his intentions were. Like, it had nothing to do about really meeting with her. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could at least put up the facade. Like, but no. So it's kind of like she walks in. As soon as she walk in, he trying to make small talk. Like they some old buddies catching up. Like, you know, my divorce is final and I'm seeing a new woman and yada, yada, yada. So it's the woman with the little girl. And then Jan pretty much is like, I mean, Marianne is pretty much like, where's Jan at? Where's Jan? And so he starts talking about the new woman and how, you know, Jan is jealous of that. He doesn't like it. And that she sent this group of hippies to kind of terrorize the lady's little girl. I mean, he had this whole elaborate story. The little girl was walking to school and these little hippies drove up and they told the little girl to tell your mom, you better leave B alone because he belongs to Jan. And so B is just like, you know, she just has her mindset on marrying me, you know. So again, he trying to make it like it's all just Marianne's idea. No, this is your idea. You the one put all that stuff in her head, got her thinking her sister's about to die if she doesn't marry you. You got her feeling like there's a whole other planet out there with people that are dependent on her if she doesn't marry you. Like, you the one got this little girl feeling like this. So don't try to make it like she just came out the blue talking about she want to marry you. And if she don't, or else. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a bunch of bull. Like, oh. So anyway, Marianne was just like, she wasn't buying none of that. She basically was like, you know, where's my daughter? So B was like, you know, come on, let's take a walk. So they get up and leave. They don't take no walk. They go to his car, basically. So they're in a car. Y'all, Marianne had that purse clutch so tight, she wasn't trying to let that jug go. So she get in the front seat or whatever. And so, he, ends up shoving this paper in her face. He goes into like his briefcase. He tells her, you know, sign this so we can get on with this and I can marry Jane. You know what I'm saying? And so he was just like, you know, I've talked to my attorney. All it takes is one signature. You don't have to have Bob's signature. You don't even have to tell him that you signed it. And so, you know, Marianne ends up taking the paper from him. So she's looking at it. So she tried to fold it up and take it in her purse. And he took it back. He was just like, nope, you ain't finna take this for no evidence against me. So he was just like, go on, sign it so we can just end this right here, right now. She was just like, over my dead body, right? And she was just like, now tell me where my child is. And B was just like, you know what? I'm done talking. He then starts reaching for his weapon, which was under his seat. And he was like, I said, I'm done. There is no use for you anymore. And so Marianne, baby, that thing got some balls on her now. She was like, you know what? You won't hurt me because then you won't be able to get to Jen. And then she started reaching inside her purse for her weapon. I was like, oh my goodness. Are they finna have a whole shootout right now? Like, what's gonna go down? You know what I'm saying? Of course, I really didn't believe it. But I said, B didn't like that. He didn't like seeing that courage in Marianne. That ruffled his feathers. And so he ends up kicking her out the car. He was like, get out now. He reached over, opened that door, like, get out. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, she leaves, and next thing you know, we see her. She walking in the door at home, and she just immediately collapses in Bob's arm. I was just like, oh, That is so sad. Oh. I try to empathize with people, just imagine like how they're feeling and what they must be going through. And it's just overwhelming just to even imagine what they must be feeling. But I said one thing I did like, I love seeing her standing up to his shenanigans though. And I just, again, just wish that it would have happened earlier. So anyway, back with Jan, we see her, a nun is asking her about the bump on her head or whatever. And she told her, she fell down some steps. And the nun ain't buying it. She was just like, did this happen when you went with your father last week? And Jan just like, she ends up telling her partial truth. She was like, you know what? It did. We were in a car accident. And, with his job and us fleeing Lebanon and all that, he couldn't take me to the hospital because there would be records. So I said, oh, that baby started to pick up on the art of lying just like he is, like he does. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh. So anyway, the nun, apparently believed her and backed off. I said, goodness. So the nun believed her, but the roommate doesn't. The roommate is just like, something ain't right. Something's going on. And so she see Jan over there, normally how she be biting her little nails or whatever. So, baby, Jan is biting them darn toenails. Now, the roommate is like, I've never seen that. Like, what are you doing? And Jan's like, well, I've been off all my fingernails. And I said, that is crazy. That baby got that much anxiety that she is biting off her nails like that. So, anyway, the roommate is like, well, what's going on? Like, why do you do that? I'm so worried. And Jan's like, you shouldn't have told the nun about my head. You don't talk about things you don't know about. And so the roommate asked, well, is your dad hard on you? I think the roommate thinks that he's probably beating on her or something, maybe. I don't know. But she was like, is your dad hard on you? And so Jan said, Mr. Tobler is the only one who cares about me. And the roommate is kind of like, you call your dad Mr. Tobler? So Jan said, leave me alone, right? She said she don't want no friends. And then she gets up and walks out the room. And as she's doing that, she mama's dead. Everyone around her gets hers anyway. So, Then we see Jan. She ends up, after she left the room, going to the little payphone. And she calls home. So Mary Ann ends up answering the phone, right? And they immediately start the recording because that's what they're doing, right? To try to catch up B whenever he calls to see if he's gonna divulge any kind of real deal information. So it's Jan, and I noticed, y'all, that Jan is calling her mom Mary Ann. Like, as soon as she answered the phone, she's like, Mary Ann? I said, because, for a while now, she already been calling her dad Bob, But this was the first time I heard her call her mom Mary Ann. And I think, and I just could be wrong, but I just kind of feel like she's doing it to kind of distance herself, like to distance her feelings for her parents, like, if you will, to kind of make it seem like more of a superficial relationship than, oh, this is my family that I absolutely love and adore. This is the woman who gave me birth, but let me create this distance by just acting like she's just another person, Mary Ann. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that was kind of why she was doing it or whatever. So nevertheless, she called. Y'all know everybody got excited. So Bob is there. Her little sisters come running. So everybody's wanting to talk to her. They're telling her they miss her. And even Mary Ann, just took the time to just apologize for, how she just hasn't been there for her. And Jan is really cold towards them. But you could tell it's really affecting her because she was kind of like crying on the phone as well. But again, at the same time, you could tell she was trying to create that distance just by being cold towards them. And so she basically, it's just like, you need to sign them papers. so that I can go ahead and marry B. And he won't let me see you until you do. And so Marianne was just like, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna allow you to marry that man. So Jan was pretty much like, well, okay then, bye. And so she was ready to hang up the phone. And Marianne was like, no, at least talk to your sisters or whatever. And so she convinces Jan to stay on long enough to talk to her sisters. And so she started asking one sister about, have you seen any UFOs or whatever? And is Susan fine? And yada, yada, yada. And so that kind of blends, the conversation kind of blends into Pete listening to the whole conversation from the recording, right? So it's Pete, his FBI partner, and like I said, they're just listening to that whole conversation from when Jan had called. And at one point, Jan says, you know what? I need to put some more money in the phone to continue the call. And so there, every time you could hear her dropping a coin into the machine, it would beep, right? And then not only would it beep, it would have a different beep sound according to the type of coin. So maybe like a quarter sounded like beep, and then maybe a dime sounded like boop. So like that, it had a different tone. So as they're listening back to the recording, they kind of count how many times they hear one tone and how many times they hear another. So they come up with that she has spent like 9 quarters and a dime, $2.35 to keep this call going. And so from that, they were able to narrow down points on a map as far as distance where that call would cost exactly that much. So they came up with like 6 different areas, in LA being one of them. I think the other 5 were smaller places. LA was kind of like the largest places. So they start asking around for her, like different schools in LA. And one of them was the Catholic school that she was at, right? And so we see the police officer going in, asking none, have you seen Jan Broberg? Is she here? And they even have a picture of her, right? So Nun's looking at the picture and she tells the police, I don't have a Jan Broberg at my school. Now, right? Now, in one instance, she's telling the truth because Jan is registered under Janice Tober or whatever. Right? And Tobler. That's it, Janice Tobler. And then, but on the other half, she's seen a picture of Jan, and so she knows exactly who they are looking for, right? So when the police leave, the nun ends up looking through the directory and calling Mr. Tobler, right? Because remember, she's on board with this whole story. He done concocted about him working for the CIA, and they're undercover, and you know, all this. So she's on board with that whole story. So she calls him, and as soon as he picks up, she starts immediately telling him, how the police were there. They're kind of on to them. They were asking about Jan. They had a different name. And she was just saying this is the first time she's ever lied to a police officer. Yeah, don't you know this man hung up in her face talking about some wrong number. I said, well, God dog, you know. But next thing you know, we see him running out of his apartment. He done packed a small bag and he goes to the payphone, right? And he kind of knows they're on to him because he himself, he's looking all around, kind of probably trying to see who watching him or whatever. So he goes to the payphone and he ends up calling the nun back. And he was just like, you know, sorry, but I was on a compromised line. I'm on a secure line now. I said, anyway, he goes on to tell her that she did the right thing because there wasn't a real police officer. They were impersonators. So he's just like, I'm going to have to take Jan out of the school for a little bit. And meanwhile, Pete is watching the whole thing. Like, he didn't know it. I don't think he saw Pete because he kept looking around. And so Pete was there with his partner. And so Pete goes to the phone booth, the same phone booth that B was using after he leaves. And he calls into the operator, and he was just like, I need to trace this call back to the last call that was placed, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, Pete's partner follows B. And so we end up seeing Jan again. She's at a PE class or whatever. And the police show up once again. And so this time, it's in front of all the kids. And they can overhear what the police is saying. So the police was just like, I'm looking for Jan Broberg. And the nun continues to deny that she is there. And so Jan is hearing this, right? And so she's looking. She's starting to freak out and panic. And the police, they just not playing with the nun. Like, they didn't just readily leave this time, right? So they start calling Jan's name out. And basically, I think it was just to see if any of them children reacted to their name being called, right? And so Jan starts to, I think this just, all of it probably scared her, to be honest. So she starts freaking out and she tries to run off. But then more police came the same direction where she was trying to run, and they just freaked her out even more, right? So all you can hear is her screaming, my name is not Jan Broberg. I'm Janice Tobler. I'm Janice Tobler. I'm not Jan Broberg. I said, oh my goodness. Meanwhile, B, he done went off. He done got him another motorhome, y'all. So it's parked off in some kind of parking lot, empty parking lot. So that's where he's fleeing to, right? So we see him inside the motorhome taking out stashes of money and another weapon. And while he's in there, all of a sudden he started hearing these other cars pull up and doors slamming. So he looks out and they got him surrounded, y'all. And he starts to lose it. He's just like, damn. And so they called for him to exit the vehicle with his hands up. If he have any kind of weapon, put it down, drop it. And so he all of a sudden, you know how he does. He try to act unbothered, He come out there RV smiling, talking about how you doing, fellas. So they arrest him or whatnot. And we catch a glimpse of like the Brobergs doing interviews at this point, just telling their side of the story about how they kept her kidnapping from the public and why they did it their way. And then we see Pete driving Jan home. Let that pass by. So we see Pete driving Jan home. And so he's just trying to talk to her, get her to feel comfortable, settle her anxieties some. And he's just telling her, take it easy on your parents because, they really do love you. They care about you. And he tells her, that her faith is what's going to help get her through this. You know what I'm saying? Well, Jan was not having it. She was just not a happy camper. Like, even once she made it home and they had this big dinner ready for her, they had like a welcome home sign or whatever, but Jan was clearly still not wanting to be there. And I said, she really played this part too, because like even her whole look to me, she just looked different. She just looked so, like you could tell like her youthfulness had been taken from her, if that makes sense. Like she just looked like she was carrying so much on her shoulders. And I can just imagine that's probably what Jan looked like in real life. Like that light was just gone, you know what I'm saying? And that's why I said this actress did such a good job of portraying that, you know what I'm saying? Like literally she just looked like it had just been snuffed out of her. You know what I'm saying? So she doesn't speak to her family. She doesn't hug them, even though they're all excited to see her. They're, wanting to talk to her and stuff. And she literally just goes straight to her room and closes the door. So we see Marianne and Bob. They go down there to try to talk to her. And the episode just ends with her telling them, I'm not your daughter. I never was. I never will be. And the sooner you accept it, the better things will be. And that was how the episode ended, y'all. It's so heartbreaking just to see this. I think we have 2 more episodes after that. I think it's a total of 10. And this is episode 8. So I can't wait to see what's up next. But anyways, let me also mention before I get out of here, November is Epilepsy Awareness Month. It means a lot to me. Simply because my son is living with epilepsy. So check out some of my fun epilepsy facts that I will be posting. Also, if there is an epilepsy awareness group around you or organization that you could donate to, please do that. Support the cause. Find out all that you can about epilepsy, the signs, the symptoms, what to do when you experience someone having a seizure. Just check it out. And if you have a little purple ribbon, wear one. Anyway, that's all I got, y'all. Until next time, I pray for you. Y'all, please pray for me. And what? Peace.